Hi, everybody. So finding out who you are. On some levels, we all know who we are, right? But most of us see ourselves as our outward persona more so than our inward persona, meaning we know what we present to others, but we don't necessarily know how we feel inside ourselves. We are what our parents want us to be, what work wants us to be, and what work expects, what our friends expect, expectations of society, and community boundaries. But really, is that all there is? No, there isn't. There is so much more. There is your inward persona as well as your outward persona. Your inner persona is a very deep and personal part of yourself that only you know, and sometimes you don't even know all the facets of it. I've noticed that when I was going through life, parts of my interpersonal persona presented themselves. Sometimes it was a situation or event that brings up this new knowing, and sometimes it's a new interest that I didn't know that I had. So there are parts of our internal self that we ourselves really don't even know because we spend a lot of time cultivating this outward persona that has to do with expectations that are presenting themselves in our environment. This is the I Care About You podcast, and I'm Juliana J. And today we're talking about getting to know ourselves. For example, in events in life such as breakups, hardships, unexpected things, and loss can bring up parts of yourself or beliefs that you have that you were unaware of before the event occurred. Reconciling childhood events can also bring up parts of yourself to which you were unaware. Oftentimes, it is when we become distressed when our inner persona is in conflict with our outward persona. At these times, we often feel unsure or uneasy about something that is happening. Our regrets can also be a byproduct of this conflict. If we go with the outward persona ideas, we can feel like we let ourselves down. We can feel that we made the wrong decision if we pick the outward persona versus the inward persona. So what I'm trying to say here is that oftentimes what we project out to the world, our outward persona, can be in conflict with our inner persona and our inner self. Because we are working so hard to be accepted, we might have an outward persona that is not altogether in sync with our inward persona. And that's when we have internal conflict. That's when we have things like feeling bad about a decision that we made or not being able to make decisions at all. Have you ever been faced with a choice and you know what others want you to do, but in your gut, you feel otherwise, you should do something else? Maybe you feel sick to your stomach or have a headache or feel overly emotional about the choice. It could be that your inner persona is in conflict with what is expected of you, with what your outer persona feels is the expectation. This can happen a lot at work. You get a directive from your supervisor that makes you feel uneasy, but you carry it out with your team because it's a directive given from your boss. All the while, you feel bad and uneasy about it. You literally feel sick to your stomach. Ask yourself, is this directive in alignment with my values and beliefs, or is it something that I feel is not the right way to go? This literally happens all the time at work because we live in fear of losing our jobs or not making more money, not getting raises or promotions or all these types of things. Having people like us and respect us at work, feeling respected for our knowledge. A lot of us really suffer with imposter syndrome, where we feel like at any given point, people are going to say, you don't belong here, you don't know what you're doing. And so we tend to do things at work that are actually in conflict with our inner personas, beliefs, and values. There have been many times that I have had a work persona that was something like, I'm a good little worker. I do everything the best. I support my boss. I fit in here. Not that those beliefs are wrong at all, because they aren't. You want all those things when you're working. You want to feel good about what you do and feel like you fit in. More like I took them to this extreme place or I simplified them too much. For example, I can strive to always be my best, but not at the expense of my team's mental health or morale. I created work goals that left out my inner persona's belief system so that when faced with something I didn't believe in at work, I was literally sick about it. Carrying out the directive was toxic for me when that happened. It completely eroded away my work relationships, my self-esteem, my happiness at work, and ended by me moving to another job in an attempt to start over. So think wisely about your work goals and your relationship goals. Don't make them too simplistic. If one of your relationship goals is to have respect, outline what respect looks like for you. Is it someone who listens deeply to what you have to say? Is it someone who admires your interests? Is it someone who thinks highly of your family? Whatever the word respect means to you, write it down. It doesn't mean a partner has to live up to all of these things that you write down, all this criteria, but by defining it on a deeper level, you can concentrate on finding somebody who resonates with your inner persona rather than many of us tend to go with what the expectations are of our outward persona. Like if our outward persona, if people identify us as, oh, you only go out with people like this, then all of a sudden we're stuffed into this box. And it's not necessarily what we want in a relationship, but what other people are telling us we want in a relationship. So, what exactly is your inner persona? How do you find out what it is? There are a lot of ways to do this, but I'm going to offer just one of them here. It's a simple list making technique. Each list should be at least a full page long, more if you need it. Again, this exercise is for you, so do it as well as you can and as thorough as you can to get the most benefit from it. So, make a list of your values or character strengths and why you have them. Do you value honesty, trust, kindness? Try to free flow the why part without much thought and see if your values are part of someone else's expectations or your own expectations. If so, ask yourself if one of your values is making that person proud. And if so, how can you achieve that in a different way that's being true to your inner self? For example, if one of your values is something you got from your dad and you're really trying to live up to that value so that they can be proud of you, then really the value is in your dad being proud of you. So how can you get that in a way that is in line with your inner persona? Like a lot of people do things like want to become a lawyer or something their parents want them to be because there's a long line of lawyers in the family or whatnot. And they're doing it to make their parents proud, not because they want to be a lawyer and that's part of their inner persona. So how can you get that benefit without doing something against your inner self? So you're going to make this list of values or character strengths, they're also called, and you're going to free flow why those are important to you. And I say free flow writing because it should just be very spontaneous because you'll learn a lot of things by writing without thinking too much. If you spend too much time crafting exactly why that value is important to you, you might miss some really under the surface things you haven't thought of that will come out as you free flow write your reason why it's important to you. If you need a list of values to work with, you can go to VA Character Strengths website, and they have a pretty big list of character strengths, and you can even take a test. It's pretty interesting, actually. You'll be surprised. And that's viacharacter.org, and I'll put that in the description of this podcast. Now, make a list of what you like and why. These should be things that define you in some way. For example, on my list, I may have I love dogs because they bring unconditional love to our lives. Or maybe I like makeup because it makes me feel pretty. So, this last one, makeup, for me, is a social expectation. I have conned myself into believing that because this is what people who present like me like, that I should like it too. I really struggled with this for a long, long time until one day I realized I don't have to like that. That's a societal pressure because I present like I do, and there's an expectation that I should be wearing makeup. I feel like I have to do it because people are seeing me as a she. So that would be an example of one of those lists of things that you like that might be more societal, that are someone else's belief rather than your own. Next, you're going to make a list of external expectations you feel that you are trying to live up to, and then if you subscribe to them or not, such as climbing the corporate ladder at work. If that's something you feel is important for your own self-growth, or is an expectation of a caregiver or a parent. Would you rather be living off the grid or starting your own business? or is exciting for you to work your way up in a company and you find that a really enjoyable ride? So start kind of listing out those things. What are all the external expectations that you feel are put upon you, and do you subscribe to them or not? Because maybe you subscribe to them and it's in sync. Those expectations are in sync with what your inner persona believes. Now, make a list of your goals and be specific here. You can have different lists, like I have relationship goals, I have general goals, I have work goals, and whatever other goals that you want to have. As you list the goals, define them further, as we did in the relationship goal of needing respect. What does that goal mean to you? In doing this, you'll often see that some goals you have internalized that aren't even yours at all, but have come from an expectation somewhere. Some of the big goals that are not yours at all, like getting married or even loving a certain person based on a lifestyle or expectation, that you have this certain thing that, oh, my partner is going to be these things. And maybe those things aren't even things that you necessarily like, or maybe you like them, but not as much as other things. So you want to just have these goal lists and really look at them. Are they your goals or are they societal goals? And if they're societal goals, what would be your goals? What are you looking for? What are your desires and dreams? Now, the last list is write down things you want to be defined as and why, and be brutally honest. Do you want to be a lawyer because generations in your family were lawyers, or do you want to be a lawyer to help others, or do you want to be something else altogether? That's my example. Is that reasoning reflecting your values in your list? So look at your lists now and cross-reference them to each other. So you have a list of your values or character strengths and why they're important to you, a list of what you like and why, a list of external expectations you feel that you're trying to live up to, and do you subscribe to them? A list of goals, and you can have different goals for different areas of your life, different lists, and then the things you want to be defined as and why. Cross-references lists with each other. Do you see any reoccurring themes or ideas popping out? For example, does trust keep coming up in the themes on your lists? Maybe trust is an inner persona desire or characteristic. If it is something your inner self highly values, most likely you're going to see repeats. Keep going and pull out things from your list that really resonate with you, and look deeply at things that may be coming from elsewhere. Even the things that come from elsewhere can be an inner self characteristic, but others have put more expectations on it than you might have yourself. If possible, isolate out the things that are an expectation of other folks and make a separate list for that. What are these specific expectations, and who are the people or groups that have those expectations about you? Use these lists as reference points for helping you see what your inner self really wants. Use them to help your inner self shine and be more part of your outer persona. Some of us get really off balance with that. Our outer persona is so different from what we're feeling on the inside that at some point we feel ingenuine. Like, it might go along for a while and we might be doing that and everything's fine. And then one day we just don't want to do it anymore. We don't want to be friends with certain people anymore. We don't want to go to certain things. We don't want to do certain things. We don't want to be with certain people. We don't want to live in certain places and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of those big things that happen in your life can really be because your outward persona and your inward persona have kind of grown really far away from each other. And now you're finding this internal conflict happening all the time. And maybe you're feeling pressures from time, like, this is the time for me to do what I want. I've spent all this time doing what other people want, and now I want to do what I want. And a lot of times people get to that space after the kids go away to college, when they are in a relationship for, say, 20, 30 years, and one day they just feel like, I'm doing everything to make this happen, but nothing for me, and it gets off balance. It can also be a long-time career, you just can't do it anymore, or anything like that, and people retire, things shift. These big shifts in your life are often accompanied by this conflict with your inner and outer personas. So try this exercise out. Knowing who you are on the inside can be a powerful tool for manifesting what you want in life. Once you know what you really want in your life, then it's easier to mold your outer self to be more in unison, in harmony with your inner self. We don't want our outer self to be too far off base from our inner self, or it becomes very hard to navigate life, as I was saying. So knowing who you are on the inside can be a powerful tool to manifesting things in your life. It might take a while for you to do this and to really hone these lists down and work on these lists. You'll go away and come back and go away, come back, and things will change in life, and you will change, and your inner self will change, and therefore your lists will change. So you don't make this list now, and 20 years from now, you're still working off the same lists. You're changing them and shifting them as you grow. And try to remember that your list is in a constant flux. It's constantly changing. You might learn something new or go through an experience or something happens, and it tunes you into something your inner self has been looking for that you didn't know before. Like a lot of people find that in spiritual practices and in different friend groups and things like that, that there's this stuff happening in the world that you don't even know about now, but your inner self would very much resonate with it once you do know about it. And when that happens, your list will shift. So I wish you well with this exercise. I'm really excited for you to discover more of your inner self. For now, know that I love you and I support you, and you got this.